walk through the bicycle casino in Bell Gardens on a Thursday afternoon. Half the tables are empty. The players who remain are mostly seniors, the same faces week after week. Younger people aren't replacing them, and that's before the lawsuits, before the regulatory changes, before the competition intensifies even further. This casino generates 50% of Bell Gardens' city budget. What happens when those tables stay empty? What happens when this revenue stream dries up? Bell Gardens is about to find out, and it won't be pretty. Back in 1998, Californians voted yes on Proposition 1A, which allowed Native American groups to build and run complete gambling facilities on their territories. This single vote sparked massive expansion throughout the region. During the following 20 years, Native-run gambling establishments thrived while roughly 80 authorized poker parlors emerged in municipalities ranging from San Jose to Bell Gardens. These poker parlors, functioning through a patron-funded system, produced approximately $5.6 billion in yearly financial activity, supporting municipal finances and creating countless employment opportunities. However, the region's hunger for wagering didn't end there. Around 2010, a fresh avenue emerged digitally. Prize-based platforms, operations like Stake.us and Chumba Casino exploited regulatory ambiguities, permitting Californians to purchase digital tokens and compete for monetary rewards. During their height, prize-based websites captured more than $2.4 billion in customer spending annually, representing over 17% of the complete United States marketplace. The sector's quick growth attracted heavy examination. Native American officials who had struggled for sole rights contended that digital prize platforms and poker parlors endangered their hard-earned achievements. Politicians answered with Assembly Bill 831. The legislation moved through the government with complete approval, 36-0 in the Senate, 63-0 in the Assembly, indicating an unusual instance of agreement in Sacramento. Following the governor's approval, the region established a firm cutoff date. Prize-based gambling operations would need to cease functioning in California by January 1st, 2026. The foundation was established for a significant reduction, and the aftermath would extend well past the gambling establishment entrance. Within weeks following the governor's approval, the prize-based gambling marketplace in California started falling apart. Significant websites like Stake.us, Chumba Casino, and Pulse released announcements to customers declaring their exit. By December 31st, 2025, every major operator had restricted California citizens, eliminating access immediately. The biggest prize-based marketplace in America, accounting for more than $2.4 billion in yearly customer spending, disappeared within days. The figures surrounding the departure were enormous. Sector experts calculated that over $1 billion in annual financial movement vanished almost immediately. Within that amount, $800 million signified direct advantages to California enterprises. Funds that previously moved through marketing firms, transaction handlers, and tech companies located in the region. The cascading impacts struck severely, with hundreds of positions connected to promotion, client assistance, and program creation suddenly threatened. A representative for the California Attorney General's office characterized the implementation as an essential action to maintain regional legislation and safeguard buyers. They emphasized that unlawful wagering wouldn't be permitted. Their department would keep watching adherence and pursue measures against any operators who try to bypass the legislation. For neighborhood economies, the prize-based prohibition created a billion-dollar gap. Companies that had grown dependent on promotion agreements or transaction handling charges confronted instant deficits. The abrupt reduction transmitted shockwaves across a sector that merely months before had appeared invincible. On January 2nd, 2025, 9 Native American groups initiated legal action against 96 California poker parlor operators, charging them with conducting unlawful house-funded competitions under the appearance of patron-funded structures. The complaint focused on the extensive utilization of external proposition participant offerings, outside companies who alternate as the house in competitions like blackjack and baccarat, successfully circumventing the region's prohibition on house-funded wagering. Poker parlor proprietors contended these setups had consistently adhered to regional guidelines with separate audits and administrative monitoring, but Native American officials demanded the method breached both the California Constitution and the sole privileges provided to Native gambling establishments under Proposition 1A. The tribunal rejected the matter in October 2025, but the group submitted an instant challenge, maintaining the judicial danger active. Meanwhile, the California Attorney General's office progressed fresh guidelines targeting shutting the alleged gap permanently. The suggested regulations with an April 2026 cutoff would compel poker parlors to rigorously implement participant alternation and restrict the function of external houses, modifications that might essentially transform their operation structure. A Berkeley financial expert forecasted the consequences. Poker parlors face losing as much as $464 million in income annually if the fresh guidelines become effective during the following 10 years. The research calculated 364 permanent positions would vanish yearly with cascading impacts, endangering thousands additional. The California Card Room Association portrayed the circumstance as a survival emergency, cautioning that approximately 23,000 positions might be eliminated throughout the sector if judicial and administrative modifications compel extensive shutdowns. Conflict between native soul rights and poker parlor continuation now endangers the financial foundation of numerous communities. The monetary wellness of complete municipalities now depends on uncertain outcomes. In Hawaiian Gardens, a municipality of merely 14,000, the Gardens Casino represents more than a commercial enterprise. It forms the foundation of community existence. Municipal finance authorities verify that between 65 and 80% of Hawaiian Gardens' yearly financial plan originates straight from the gambling establishment, totaling somewhere from $9 million to $14 million annually. That funding covers fundamental offerings most communities consider normal: law enforcement patrols, after-school initiatives, and assistance for elderly residents. Throughout the pandemic restrictions, when the gambling establishment shut down, the municipality forfeited half its income immediately and was compelled to reduce nearly 40% of its personnel. Recuperation has been gradual, and any additional interruption endangers to force the municipality past the threshold. Commerce, residents to the planet's biggest poker parlor, depends on gambling establishment income for as much as half of its main budget. The Commerce Casino's 240 surfaces and roughly 5,000 workers produce levy earnings that supports 4 community libraries, an elderly facility, a youth facility, and a complementary municipality transportation offering. Without this solitary income source, municipal officials cautioned that crucial initiatives would confront instant reductions. Bell Gardens confronts a comparable situation. The bicycle casino provides 40 to 45% of the municipality's main budget. In San Jose, poker parlors add between $18 million and $30 million yearly, sufficient to cover 150 law enforcement personnel. For these municipalities, gambling establishment earnings isn't an extra benefit. It's the distinction between a working community and a depleted structure. As judicial and administrative dangers increase, neighborhood authorities are left with limited options and fewer solutions. California's wagering financial system now confronts a tempest of external forces. Fuel costs have jumped to $4.27 per gallon, more than 50% greater than the countrywide standard. With the Phillips 66 Wilmington facility shut down in late 2025 and Valero's Benicia facility shutting in April 2026, the region will forfeit roughly 284,000 containers of everyday refining ability. That represents 17% of California's complete provision. And predictions from USC Power financial experts cautioned that fuel might achieve $7.35 to $8.43 per gallon by year's conclusion. A USC instructor monitoring buyer expenditure observes that these costs create less space in family finances for recreation. The impact on gambling establishment tourism is instant. Based on a UNLV investigator, automobile visitors, who constitute the foundation of most area gambling establishments, are the initial to vanish. As fuel expenses increase, optional journeys to wagering locations become a privilege fewer Californians can manage. But while most of the sector prepares for reduction, certain native gambling establishments are shattering records. In 2024, California's native wagering income reached $12.1 billion, signifying more than a quarter of all United States native wagering. Significant developments are advancing. The $600 million Hard Rock Hotel Tian launched in November 2025, and a $1 billion growth is proceeding at Grayton Resort. Meanwhile, smaller functions confront a more severe situation. The Meko Opta Indian Group invested 25 years organizing its gambling establishment, only to shut down less than a year following launch. Their leader termed it a devastating choice, compelled by rivalry from two bigger native gambling establishments in the identical region. With the judicial conflict over poker parlor functions under challenge until no earlier than 2026 or 2027, and fresh guidelines approaching, the separation between victors and defeated expands broader by the month. Athletic wagering, previously viewed as a potential rescue, stays years distant. For numerous, the timer is advancing and the following surge of shutdowns might be approaching. California's wagering environment is dividing in dual directions. Success for a limited number, emergency for numerous. As billions vanish, municipalities and laborers confront results past the gambling establishment entrance. What occurs subsequently will determine finances, employment, and communities throughout the region. For countless individuals, the risks have never been greater. California possesses roughly 80 poker parlors distributed throughout the region. These aren't native gambling establishments. They present card games and poker, but not electronic gaming machines. For multiple years, they've functioned within legal boundaries, sanctioned by regional administrators, and they contribute levies to neighborhood municipalities. Their complete financial influence is $5.6 billion yearly, maintaining 32,000 positions and $1.6 billion in compensation. However, there's the difficulty. Native gambling establishments claim these poker parlors are capturing their customers by presenting competitions that resemble considerably like blackjack and baccarat. They assert this breaches their sole privileges to Las Vegas fashion wagering in California. In 2024, legislation was approved providing groups the authority to initiate legal action against these poker parlors. On January 3, 2025, 7 of California's most prosperous groups submitted a massive legal action against numerous poker parlors throughout the region. The poker parlors claim every single competition they present has been explicitly sanctioned by the California Department of Justice. They've been conducting these competitions for multiple years, but the groups desire them terminated. And here's where this becomes genuinely disastrous for ordinary Californians. These poker parlors aren't merely random commercial enterprises. They're the financial foundation of complete municipalities. Hawaiian Gardens is the tiniest municipality in Los Angeles County, under 1 square mile. Estimate where 78% of their municipal financial plan originates from? The Gardens Casino, 78%. Not an error. Bell Gardens receives 50% of their municipal income from the bicycle casino. Commerce receives 40 to 50% from Commerce Casino. San Jose obtains $30 million yearly from poker parlors. That's sufficient funding to support 150 law enforcement personnel or 133 firefighters. When the health crisis compelled these gambling establishments to shut down briefly, Hawaiian Gardens terminated 40% of their municipal personnel. They reduced youth initiatives. They reduced elderly offerings. And that was merely a brief shutdown. The mayor of Hawaiian Gardens recently stated that the suggested guidelines would ruin and potentially cause insolvency for the municipality. Those aren't fabricated statements. Those are the mayor's statements, insolvency. Now picture what occurs if the groups prevail, this legal action, and these poker parlors are compelled to terminate permanently. We're discussing municipalities submitting for civic insolvency, law enforcement divisions gutted, emergency offerings reduced, public book repositories shut down, youth initiatives removed. While native gambling establishments are battling poker parlors, they additionally pursued another adversary, digital prize-based gambling establishments. These are websites where you acquire digital coins, conduct slot fashion competitions, and can exchange victories for actual monetary rewards. California signified 17.3% of the complete United States prize-based gambling establishment marketplace. Yearly customer acquisitions total $242 billion. That's billion with a capital B. In October 2025, legislation was approved prohibiting these websites completely. The ballot was complete, 36-0 in the Senate, 63-0 in the Assembly. Not a solitary politician voted opposing it. And currently these operations are departing California like the structure is burning. High Five Casino departed, Stake Us departing December 30th, Pulse terminating December 15th, McLuck completed by December 29th. Wow Vegas, the Boss Casino, Spree Casino, Cosmos Slots, Betty Sweeps, Ruby Sweeps, Dora Casino, all departed. Over 14 websites have already declared their departure. The sector asserts this prohibition removes $1 billion from California's financial system, $732 million in yearly promotion expenditure on websites like Meta and Google, 200 technical positions removed, $70 million in digital infrastructure expenditure disappearing. California merely became the 17th region to prohibit these websites, but it's by considerable measure the biggest. With roughly 40 million citizens, California signifies almost 20% of the American population currently restricted from these locations. The cutoff is January 1st, 2026. Customers have until December 31st to exchange their funds, or they might forfeit everything. The California Attorney General has suggested fresh guidelines that would basically destroy how poker parlors function. These guidelines would remove external proposition participants who presently operate surface competitions. They would prohibit utilizing 21 as a goal figure in blackjack fashion competitions. The region's personal financial evaluation discovered these modifications might expense poker parlors $464 million in deficits and result in 364 positions forfeited yearly for the following 10 years. And that's the administration's personal calculation. In October 2025, hundreds of poker parlor workers, municipal authorities, and union participants assembled outside the Attorney General's department in Sacramento to object. Municipal laborers, Teamsters, union participants, all stating these guidelines will trigger poker parlor shutdowns that will ruin municipalities and potentially compel civic insolvencies. One combined message from neighborhood administrations and worker organizations stated these guidelines will trigger poker parlor shutdowns, which will ruin certain municipalities who might need to submit for civic insolvency or dissolve. Dissolve indicates terminate existence as a municipality. We're discussing California municipalities literally vanishing from the chart because their gambling establishment income dried up. All three of these conflicts are occurring at the same time. Native gambling establishments initiating legal action against poker parlors, prize-based gambling establishments being prohibited and departing, fresh guidelines endangering to complete whatever continues. It's a conflict on three directions against California's wagering sector, and ordinary individuals are captured in the conflict. The ones receiving destroyed are the tinier functions. Metropolitan gambling establishment shut down following 11 months. Smaller groups in countryside locations viewed prize-based collaborations as one of their sole routes to financial progress. Multiple smaller groups actually opposed the prize-based prohibition, including Cloverdale Rancheria, Sherwood Valley Rancheria of Pomo Indians, and Big Lagoon Rancheria. They contended this legislation advantages bigger established gambling establishments while eliminating financial chances for territorially disadvantaged groups. One group, Financial Progress Executive, stated that while established groups produce substantial incomes from wagering, smaller and less territorially advantaged groups depend on social wagering as one of merely a limited number of practical financial routes. Currently, that route is shut, so we possess big groups versus small groups, native gambling establishments versus poker parlors, and everyone versus prize-based gambling establishments. Meanwhile, municipalities are observing their finances disappear, and laborers are forfeiting positions. This isn't merely a California difficulty, this is an American difficulty. California's native gambling establishments produce more than 25% of all native wagering income in the complete United States. When California's wagering sector struggles, it transmits shock surges throughout the nation, and the rivalry for wagering funds is only becoming more severe. 40 regions currently possess some configuration of authorized wagering. You can wager on athletics from your device in more than 30 regions. The marketplace is filled. There are excessive gambling establishments pursuing insufficient gamblers. California attempted to authorize athletic wagering in 2022. Two ballot proposals, Proposition 26 for in-location wagering at native gambling establishments, Proposition 27 for digital wagering through commercial operators, both unsuccessful. Proposition 27 was opposed by 82% of voters. 82%, that's the biggest boundary of defeat for any ballot proposal in California record. The effort invested between $450 million and $600 million combined, the most costly ballot proposal effort in United States record. And voters stated no to both choices. So California possesses no authorized athletic wagering, no authorized digital gambling establishments, and currently the prize-based websites that were occupying that space are departed too. Where do you believe California gamblers proceed currently? International locations with no buyer securities operating to Nevada, the requirement doesn't vanish. It merely transfers somewhere California cannot levy or control. Consider a small community in countryside California. The variety of location where the closest native gambling establishment was the biggest employer for distances around. When that gambling establishment struggles or shuts down, families must operate an hour merely to discover employment. Asset worth decline, young individuals depart, educational institutions forfeit support, the complete community depletes. These gambling establishments aren't merely wagering structures, they're community centers. They possess restaurants, recreation locations, accommodations, conference facilities. When the Metro to Casino shut down, it wasn't merely the electronic gaming machines that went dark. The Honey Run Cafe terminated, the Moonlight Bar shut down, 64 positions disappeared from a countryside community that urgently required them. The standard age of gambling establishment customers in California is becoming older annually. Younger individuals wager less than their parents accomplished. They favor experiences over competitions of probability. If gambling establishments cannot attract the following generation, this complete sector confronts a population time explosive. Certain California gambling establishments are adjusting. They're constructing resort fashion locations with wellness centers, golf facilities, and performance locations. Pechanga, Grayton, Yamava at San Manuel merely obtained a AA 5-diamond evaluation. These enormous gambling establishments will continue, but the tinier functions, the countryside gambling establishments, the ones serving communities that possess no other choices, they're existing on borrowed duration. Fresh gambling establishments are still launching. Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Tejon launched on November 13th, 2025. It's a $600 million progress south of Bakersfield with 2,500 electronic gaming machines, 48 surface competitions, a Hard Rock active performance location, and 13 restaurants and bars. Acorn Ridge Casino launches in spring 2026. It's a smaller specialty function near Sacramento, so the sector isn't completely terminated. The significant participants are still investing, but the space between victors and defeated is becoming broader. The prosperous gambling establishments are becoming more prosperous. The struggling ones are shutting. And the communities that depend on those struggling gambling establishments are left with nothing. $20 billion in yearly financial influence is under attack. 87 gambling establishments and 80-plus poker parlors are battling for continuation. Municipalities are confronting insolvency because their gambling establishment income is disappearing. Laborers are forfeiting positions. Small groups are eliminated from financial chances, and there's no obvious route forward. The native gambling establishments desire to remove all rivalry. The poker parlors are battling for their existence. The prize-based sector has already forfeited. Municipalities are captured in the center, observing their finances collapse. And the individuals who require assistance the most, the small groups, the countryside communities, the municipal laborers, they're the ones covering the expense. California's gambling establishment sector produced more wagering income than any other region's native gambling establishments. It maintained over 100,000 positions. It supported educational institutions, healthcare, housing, and infrastructure for native communities. It maintained small municipalities functional. And currently, 3 different conflicts are tearing it apart. Legal actions, prohibitions, guidelines, each one independently would be controllable. All 3 together, that's how sectors collapse. What occurs to California when the gambling establishment funding dries up? What occurs to Hawaiian Gardens if they forfeit 78% of their financial plan? What occurs to the 32,000 poker parlor laborers if those commercial enterprises shut down? What occurs to the small groups who cannot rival with the enormous gambling establishments near Los Angeles? Nobody in Sacramento appears to possess a solution, and the timer is advancing. January 1st, 2026, prize-based gambling establishments become unlawful. Poker parlor